morning, everybody. Welcome to Council Chambers. Welcome to City Hall, and welcome to a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Wednesday, April 21st, 2004. The City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Meetings are open to the public, and we do invite you to join us. For members of the public unable to attend council meetings, we can be viewed live on your cable station, Channel 35. We can also be viewed live via webcast from the city's homepage or heard via council phone. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Grohl, Hahn, Labange, Ludlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weisstein, Padilla, 11 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The council is officially in session. We do have a couple of presentations scheduled for this morning, and I think we're pulling it together here in a few minutes. Let's first, colleagues, go through the agenda and dispense with consent items, and then we'll return and conduct our presentations. Madam Clerk, first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Smith moves and Ms. Hahn seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Cardenas moves and Ms. Perry seconds.
Mr. President, this is the time for comments from the public on items not on council's agenda.
Okay, and we'll hear general public comment before hearing items called special.
On the regular agenda, items noticed for public hearings, items 1 through 6, they are street lighting districts, and council should open the hearings and continue the hearings and ordinances to May 12th.
That's for all items 1 through 6?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay, let me recognize you do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on items 1 through 6. Public hearings are open and without objection continue to May 12th, 3 weeks from today. Next item.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 7 through 21.
Members, items 7 through 21 now before us. Public hearings have been held on these items. A motion from the floor would be required to reopen the public hearings. Seeing no such motion, do we have any requests for specials? Mr. Cardenas.
Item 8, special, please.
Item 8, call special by Mr. Cardenas. Any other specials? Mr. Reyes.
I'm sorry. You'll be getting, there'll be item 47.
Okay, coming up on that one. Any other specials?
And there is an ordinance on item number 7. Do you wish to hold that on the desk for
Let's hold
12?
7 on the desk. We do expect 12 members today.
Number 27, sir.
Okay. Any other specials, members, on this batch of items? Seeing none, let's open the roll on the balance of the items. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held, items 22 through 47. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Without objection, items 22 through 47 are before the City Council this morning. We do have a card in item 27. Let's call that special. On the balance of the items, you do not have requests from members of the public to address the council. Public hearings are open. Public hearings are closed. Requests for specials, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. Items 44 and 47. And 44 is just a technical change on the motion.
Okay, is that a technical?
Just a very quick, it should be located in Council District 14 instead of District 1.
Okay, I think we can consider item 44 with that technical amendment without objection. We'll call 47 special for Mr. Reyes. Ms. Perry.
Item 42 for Mr. Parks.
Item 42, call special, and we do expect Mr. Parks this morning. Any other specials?
And there are ordinances on 22, 23, 24, and 25.
Let's hold all ordinances on the desk as we do await 12 members today. On the balance of the items, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Mr. Parks has joined us, bringing us to 12 members now. Let's, Madam Clerk, go back to the ordinances.
That would be items 7 and 22 through 25.
Okay, let's open the roll on the ordinances, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
Twelve ayes.
Those ordinances are approved. Next item, please.
The next item, Mr. President, is the closed session, item number 48. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Let's hold all closed session matters on the desk.
And that would take council back to the items called special. Do you wish to take public comment at this time?
Before we do that, we do have a couple of presentations scheduled for this morning. I believe Mr. Garcetti is ready with our first. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues. And I know we're going to be marking the occasion in a second, but for those of you at home wondering why we're wearing jeans, it is denim today, which we will hear about momentarily. But I am here today to let folks know about a wonderful film festival that is happening starting tomorrow. For 6 days, a humanitarian film festival in the heart of Hollywood and other places around the city, the Artivist Film Festival, which brings activism and art together here in the city and celebrates the work, not just locally, but internationally, of activists in the area of the environment, in the area of human rights, and a number of different areas, and highlights films, too, that portray some of this work and that celebrate the work of folks who, when they're not making movies, are also activists in the community. And Diaki Diaz is with me today, our founder and executive director. And also, we hope that folks will come down to the Egyptian Theater in the next 7 days. This Thursday, tomorrow on Earth Day, is the premiere. For 7 days and nights at the Egyptian Theater, we're going to have activists and artists coming down, looking at environmental issues, social, global, political, animal rights issues through film, visual art, and music. And the mission of the Artivist Film Festival, if I can just read it for a second, is to strengthen the voice of international activist, filmmaker, and artists while raising public awareness and funds for global social causes. What could be better? Some of the folks who will be honored next Tuesday, April 27th, at the 2004 Artivist Awards. We'll be looking at shorts and features within the film festival, but special tribute will be given to some of the beneficiary charities. The money that's raised during the festival will be given to Greenpeace, the Humane Society of the United States, the Child Welfare League of America, and Witness, which is a superb human rights organization that gives cameras to human rights activists around the world to document injustices and abuses throughout the world. Ed Begley Jr., a friend to many folks around this horseshoe, will receive the Environmental Preservation Award. Tippi Hedren will receive the Animal Rights Advocacy Award. Mike Farrell will accept the Human Rights Advocacy Award. And France Nguyen will accept the Children's Advocacy Award. All of these four folks, obviously, well known for their work, but a part of a larger movement within the artistic community to make sure that social activism and art don't have to exist in two different columns, but can exist at one and the same. So I ask for folks to come down to the Egyptian Theater. I think there's a website, isn't there? It's Artivist, which is ARTIVIST, filmfestival.org. You can check it out, and on behalf of the city, I want to congratulate you on your first year doing the Artivist Film Festival and give you this award and hear a little something about what we can expect. So congratulations. Thank you. I'll shake your hand. Thank you. Absolutely. Okay, go ahead. Why don't you say something?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. We're very excited to be here today. Tomorrow is Earth Day, so we premiere at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood. We will be there for 7 days. On the very first day, we will be addressing environmental preservation. On the second day, Friday, we're going to be tackling animal rights. Saturday is going to be International Human Rights Day. Sunday is going to be Children's Advocacy. Monday will be spiritual artivism, which our films will be focusing on art, activism, and spirituality. On Tuesday, April 27th, will be the 2004 Artivist Awards. That's actually our first annual Artivist Awards. Like Mr. Garcetti has already explained, we're going to be honoring the winning shorts and features of the first annual Artivist Film Festival. We will also be honoring activists who are artists. We're going to be honoring Ed Begley Jr., France Nguyen, Tippi Hedren, and Mike Farrell. And all of our net proceeds will be benefiting Greenpeace, the Humane Society, Child Welfare League of America, and Witness. The festival runs for 7 days, and we are showing 80 films in 7 days. And they all deal with social, global, political, animal rights, environmental concerns. It's just going to be a really wonderful activist celebration in the heart of Hollywood. So we welcome each and every one of you to come down and enjoy the Artivist Film Festival. Thank you for your time, and good morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I know everybody knows Los Angeles is the creative capital of the world. I think we're probably one of the activist capitals of the world, and this will bring both things together. So again, thank you for the great work, the film festival. Look forward to seeing many of you there and many of our viewers that are watching this on Channel 35. Again, you can go to artivistfilmfestival.org. That's artivistfilmfestival.org, and we hope to see you out there in Hollywood. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Before going to our next presentation, Mr. Reyes, did you have a couple of introductions this morning?
We have with us, and I'd just like to thank you, Council President, members of the Highland Park Neighborhood Council, and I'd just like for them to stand. I just want to welcome them to City Hall and thank them for their, and Peg, you could stand too. Yes, please. Let's acknowledge them. These are folks that take time out of their hard-working day, out of their job, and I just want to thank them for joining us. Mr. Hernandez has been playing a great role in being a steward for our children, and has brought down one of the grammar schools that's actually in CD14. So I'm sure there's two of them. So we have with us Monte Vista, and we have with us Buchanan, and which one else? Aldama? Annandale. Annandale and Aldama, thank you very much. Thank you for your great role, given all the high salaries you're making and for your hard work here. I just want to just appreciate everything you do. Thank you so much.
Mr. Zine for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very pleased to have with us today Ethan Z. Laurent, attorney at law, and Mark S. Harvey, attorney at law, and they won a day with the councilman. Actually, they're paying for it with One Generation out in the San Fernando Valley. We want to thank you for being with us today, gentlemen, and thank you for supporting One Generation for all the good work they do out in the San Fernando Valley. And Ethan's also a member of the West Hills Neighborhood Council, and Mark's a Harley rider. So we have a lot in common here today. Thank you both for being with us today. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Zine, and let it be clear that nobody has to pay to spend time with you as their councilman, right?
No, it doesn't go to me. It goes to the charitable organization. And they get free lunch. I take them out to lunch, too.
There's no such thing as a free lunch.
No, I pay for the lunch.
They better be careful. Colleagues, we do have a couple of other presentations this morning. I think our guests are still making their way into the building. In a little while, we'll participate in presentations by Councilmember Miskowski, by Mr. Parks, and Ms. Perry. But in the meantime, let's get back to our agenda and take up general public comment first. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on matters within our jurisdiction but not appearing on today's agenda. And at this point in time, we call forward Charles Griffin. And Mr. Griffin will be followed by Ediogenes Luvianos Rumbos and Manuel Garay. Mr. Griffin.
Mr. President, my name is, for the record, is Charles Griffin, and I'm from the city of Newport Beach in Orange County. I spoke to the council last week and challenged them to give me your attention and also to consider the vital idea of purchasing the runways at El Toro as a means of providing for the expanding aviation demands in this region. This week, the governor signed the workers' compensation insurance legislation. He did it at the airport at Long Beach, where the manufacturing of the C-17 and the B-717 takes place. And it was fitting that he did that because that factory represents thousands of manufacturing and engineering jobs and brings a big payroll into our region. But airplanes cannot be utilized to their full extent unless they have runways. And that's why I implore you to consider purchasing the El Toro runways and use those runways to expand the use of aviation in our area. It has been suggested that perhaps other airports in the region, such as Ontario, San Bernardino, and Riverside, might take up the slack. However, and the growth, rather, of this region. But Ontario is limited, not only just like Los Angeles with its a contiguous residential community in Inglewood. In Ontario, you have an old farmhand community established with schools and churches at the West End. You also have crosswinds during the seasonal Santa Ana winds, which close that runway. You also have, and it's also environmentally impacted by the fact that the smog collects near the ocean, near the mountains there from the ocean.
Sir, if I may ask you to conclude, we have other speakers waiting.
Conclude? All right. I just wanted to emphasize I have provided each of you with a brief letter to the governor imploring that he follow up on this item, and also to give you my website, OCX El Toro, where you can get more details. But I implore you to buy El Toro, just as you bought the water rights in the Owens Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Eri Rumbos, por favor.
Muy buenos días, señor presidente municipal y a los... Muy buenos días, señor
Good morning,
presidente
Mr.
municipal
Municipal
y a los
President
concejales.
and the council people.
Venimos a
We come
que lo apoyen
to support
que
us
ese lugar que
because that
estamos
place that
es
we are
unas
on
tierras que las
is
trabajan los
land
campesinos.
that the farm workers work on it.
Tenemos 300 plantas
We have 300
frutales
plants, fruits,
para los niños
for
y
the
los
children
señores grandes.
and the older people.
Queremos toda
And
la
we want
comunidad,
the whole community,
presidente y los
President
concejales,
and
que
council
nos
people
apoyen.
to support us.
Hay mucha oportunidad
There's
para
a lot
que
of
ustedes los
opportunities so
apoyen.
that you can support
Esto-
us. That's all. Hábleme a mí.
Nosotros somos los campesinos del sur
We are the
centro,
farm workers from South Central
de la 41 de la
on
Alameda.
41st and Alameda.
Le pedimos a los,
And we
los
ask
alcaldes y
the
al,
council
y
people
al alcalde que
and the
que nos haga favor de
president
dejarnos ahí otro
to
tiempo.
please leave us there for
Hemos trabajado
some
el tiempo que
time.
tenemos en ese terreno como
We have worked on that
hemos
land
plantado
for
como
about,
300 árboles
we have planted 300 trees,
y necesitamos ahí para
and
nuestros hijos, para
we
nuestros
need it
hijos,
for our children,
para que se enseñen a
so
trabajar
that they
como
learn how to work
lo que la tierra produce,
what the land produces.
plantar árboles,
Plant
plantar,
trees,
sembrar maíz, frijol, todo eso,
corn, beans, all of that.
todo eso.
All of that.
Muchas gracias. a los-
Thank you all.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Gracias. This concludes public comment for today's meeting. Mr. Zion, did you have an introduction? No? Let's return now to our next presentation. Our next presentation that is now ready to go, Ms. Misikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could be joined up here by the representatives from the Los Angeles County Commission Against Assaults Against Women and our own Paula Petrata from our Commission of Status of Women. As has already been remarked, and I think for everyone walking in today, particularly the school kids, normally we in the city council chambers don't wear jeans. But we're wearing jeans today not just because we think it's fun and casual day, but because we are also making a social statement, not just a fashion statement. And what today we are going to declare and have the resolution here by signed by both the mayor and the council members proclaiming today Denim Day, to urge everyone to wear jeans today, and I think we've had a great compliance today around the council chambers and our city offices, to help communicate that there is an important statement that there's no excuse and never an invitation to rape. And this stems from an Italian court case many years ago where a judge ruled in a woman's case where she was claiming that she had been raped and the perpetrator was on the stand. And the judge said, well, gee, you were wearing tight jeans, so maybe that you had to help him in some way, and allowed it to be an excuse for not convicting someone of rape. And I think the poster that has been put around City Hall today is really great. It says, and it communicates, it's not what we wear, it's not where we go, it's not how we look, It's not how old we are. It's not where we live. It's not who we date. It's not how we dance. It's not where we work. There's no excuse and never an invitation or an allowability that anyone should take to think that rape can be committed. And as much as we have awareness today, in the whole month of April, which has been declared by the Governor Sexual Awareness Month in the United States government, there are still things we need to do to educate people and to continue and communicate that education. And most importantly, we need to communicate to our young people, because although the statistics indicate that approximately 1 in 3 women are raped in their adulthood, sexual assault victimization occurs even at a stronger level among young people. And so young people need to learn, need to understand this same rationale, that there is never an excuse or an invitation to commit a rape or sexual assault on women. I'm joined here today by women from our own Commission on the Status of Women and from the county's Commission on Assault Against Women. And I want to announce, I think they will as well, that there's actually going to be a rally today at the Kenneth Hahn Hall of Administration building from 11 to 1, where a lot of people are going to go and help, again, raise this awareness and communicate it. But I think it's something that we have learned, we understand around this building, and are very proud to be seeing as many people as we have participating and communicating that message today. So on behalf of the mayor and the city council members, let me present this to both our own Commission of Status of Women and to the county's Commission on Assault Against Women, and say thank you for helping to raise this awareness, for joining us today, and for leading the rally later this afternoon. Thank you. Did you want to say something to the council?
Mr. Reyes?
Thank you very much. And I want to say thank you very much to the Los Angeles City Council for acknowledging this momentous day, this achievement. This is LACAWS, the LA Commission on Assault Against Women. This is our 6th annual Denim Day in Los Angeles, and it grows every year, and we really have to attribute a significant amount of that growth to support from the Los Angeles City Council. This year, we are anticipating over 120,000 participants in the city of Los Angeles who will be supporting us by putting posters up, passing out flyers, and of course, wearing denim. And it's really significant and really critical that we have the leadership of Los Angeles acknowledge that there's never an excuse, nor is there ever an invitation for sexual assault to occur. And once again, I want to thank you very much, and we anticipate your continued support throughout the years. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes, followed by Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to thank you for your hard work. Thank you, Councilman Sikowski, for supporting this very important issue.
Thank you very
Growing
much.
up with 3 sisters and having a daughter who's 15 years old. The other day I was looking at our statistics in our council district. We have an estimated 9 rapes in CD1 alone. Citywide, it's a much higher figure. So what you have to say today is very important. The fact that we're wearing denim jeans is a good statement to make, to change the norm, to change the standards of our conventional settings. And from an economic point of view, I believe there's a study that for every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 75 cents.
That's right.
So from an economic point of view, there's a different type of violation. And for that reason, I think it's important that we make this known. And all of the great women who have stood next to all the great men would be acknowledging the strong efforts you're making as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilmember Mizikowski, for being a stalwart on this, and each year making sure that we don't forget and that it's something that gets strengthened and strengthened. I was happy to be with LACAW, Mr. Weiss as well, a couple weeks ago to kick off the awareness that LACAW was doing around Denim Day as well. And I'll just repeat one brief part of what I talked about there, which is I think this one thing that we forget about today is that it's one moment where feminists and people who care about women throughout the world come together, not just locally, but because this really came out of another country, it's one of those opportunities where we can see so much of what's happening around the world and that impact here in Los Angeles as well. Los Angeles, where women who have filed for refugee status, often based on sexual assault, actually live here in Los Angeles, where and LaCaw has been great with this. Mr. Labange's I-District, there are girls who still live in fear walking to school because of the Hyperion Bridge rapist who has been in Los Feliz and Silver Lake, where we look at that gap that Mr. Reyes talked about. But it really is an incredible opportunity not only to look at solidarity here within the city, but worldwide. One of those rare moments, and I know we have number 47 coming up today, which is our support of the march this Sunday in D.C. that I'm going to for women's lives. And really that interconnectedness of all of these issues is something that we need to continue to push forward on. And one of the great things too, tomorrow I know that the commission here is going to be having hearings on trafficking and some of the issues that continue here. But out of Los Angeles, there are some great victories since last year too. If you look at the work of CAST, one of our local organizations, the Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking, they actually got a new visa type for people who are here as sexual slaves, essentially, when they're freed up, not to be shipped back to their countries, but to actually have the safety to live here as they recover from their shattered lives sometimes. So thank you again, Ms. Misikowski. Thank you for everybody who's here in jeans. And it's one of those great opportunities where people call in because they see us in jeans saying, why is my council member in jeans? And we get that opportunity to raise awareness. So thank you again for that opportunity.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Garcetti, that was very well said. I really appreciate what you said, and I appreciate that Ms. Misikowski is here as the sponsor of Denim Day in the council, and I'm very proud to join this entire body is supportive of LaCaw and of not just the mission and the message of Denim Day, but so many of the other missions of LaCaw. And I think it's really important that we use this opportunity today, while you're getting out the main message of Denim Day, to also focus on other issues that are also so important to you and make sure we do everything we can. I mean, one issue that I continue to feel very strongly about is changing the way law enforcement does its business when it comes to the use of technology, and in particular DNA technology, to solve sexual assault crimes. Because the people who commit sexual assaults are the most notorious recidivists imaginable. You're all but guaranteed that they will assault again and again and again until you find them. And it seems that every week we see a new article in the newspaper about a rapist, some horribly vicious criminal from 10, even 20 years ago, whose case has been solved through the use of DNA. I think I saw in the New York Times yesterday, the day before yesterday, that someone has been charged with a series of rapes in Kansas City going back decades, and that span a decade, in part, I believe, because of the use of DNA evidence. And as we enter into the budget season here in Los Angeles, I think it's very important that we do what Ms. Misikowski and I have been insisting for several years, which is program more money into the LAPD's accounts to deal with outsourcing of rape test kits, because I don't care whether they're tested by a city employee or a private, who cares? Just get them tested as quickly as possible. And if we do that, we'll also accomplish some of the most important goals that you stand for. So thank you very much. And I can tell you that the message of Denim Day is something that is it is taking off throughout this city. You're all to be congratulated for all the extraordinary work you do for LaCaw and for Los Angeles. Thank you.
Mr. Zine, followed by Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you, Mr. President. And every day should be Denim Day. Every day we should remember to respect women, to respect their accomplishments, and what some people need to do, get a pay raise, right, Paula? Commission on Status of Women. The good work that's done, domestic violence, rape, attack on women, we see this, and coming from law enforcement, I've seen it too many times. And I applaud you for bringing this to the public light. But again, we need to remind ourselves every single day, we need to remind the people of America every single day, we can't tolerate this. This has to be eliminated, these attacks on women. And God knows what happens in third world countries, because we hear about that in the news. But right here in the United States, the land of freedom and opportunity where we have those, we cannot tolerate. So every day should be Denim Day for the people of America. And thank you for the good work you're doing. I'm proudly wearing my denim today to join with the support along with all of my colleagues. Well, that's my little symbol that I have right up there.
It's a very nice symbol.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for being here.
Mr. Cardenas.
Just like Mr. Reyes, I've been fortunate to be influenced by 6 older sisters in my case, and a very strong mother who took care of 11 kids and did a fine job. My wife is very involved in young women's issues, and she is very involved with programs like Young Moms programs and various programs. And the stories that unfortunately you come across and the people that you meet in life, like one of the young ladies that she was tutoring who was supposed to be enjoying her celebration of her 15th birthday, was raped by her uncle. The reason why I bring that story up is because you reminded me, Cindy, that it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter what's going on. There is no excuse. And in my opinion, it's pathetic excuses for people to even try to justify such an act, whether the person is related or not. The act in and of itself is unjustifiable. It's incomprehensible, and it's something that cannot be justified and cannot be excused. One of the things that I want to remind everyone, that one of the reasons why we're wearing denim today is to remind people that government as well is not doing its job. When I was in the state legislature, I had to fight very hard to make sure that we had gender-specific programs. For example, people don't realize it, but many of our young girls, young women, are actually more involved in issues that are only funded for boys. They're not funded for girls either. We need to make sure that government treats our citizens equally as well. When it comes to programs, when it comes to support, in addition to that, it's unfortunate when you look at the appalling funding that when you look at rape crisis centers, when you look at battered women's shelters. The fact of the matter is the San Fernando Valley has a shelter that has just shy of 40 rooms, 40 units in it, which is the largest this side of the Mississippi. And this side of the Mississippi, we have over 100 million people living in this country. And yet that's the largest shelter we can have. And that is not even directly government funded. It's partially funded by the government. We need to make sure that we continue this awareness, not only today, but every day, that we are not doing our part. We are not treating our citizens as equals. We are not giving people who have the courage to stand up and speak out against these atrocities. We're not even giving them the decent amount of support when they do have the courage to do so, to make sure that they can get their lives back in order, if at all possible. So I want to thank you all for the wonderful work that you're doing on the commission. Thank you, Cindy, for bringing this awareness about at this level. And I want to thank my colleagues for supporting it 100%. Thank you.
Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I also wanted to rise to say thank you to Ms. Misikowski and to the ladies or the women here assembled. Yesterday we talked about equal pay. Today we're talking about the symbolic message that wearing jeans sends or telegraphs to those who are paying attention. And maybe this is why Los Angeles is considered to be one of the more receptive or friendly cities for women to work and live and to raise their families. And so I just want to say thank you very much for continuing to teach all of us.
Really quickly, as Los Angeles goes, so does the rest of the state, but don't tell the rest of the state that. And because of the leadership exhibited from Los Angeles and the City Council, the rest of the state has adopted Denim Day. So it is also Denim Day in California, and there's simultaneous activities going on in Sacramento as a result of the work that's been happening here in Los Angeles. And because of the wonderful political and governmental leadership that many of you have provided, we have opportunities to work with those people who don't, who are considered on the fringe or who don't have mainstream opportunities to receive this education, such as our girls who are incarcerated in our juvenile halls and in our camp facilities. And because LaCaw has an opportunity to go in and provide education with that population because of the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act of 2000. Some of those girls weren't able to join us today for obvious reasons. So we had them design shirts for Denim Day for our event today, and we'll be wearing our shirts at our rallies. I'll have them on display. And again, I want to thank you all very much for your leadership. Thank you very much, Councilwoman Misikowski, for introducing it. And again, we look forward to your continued support and for all of your wonderful comments. Thank you once again.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. And this morning on the way through the district, I was crossing through the 4th to the 13th and over the Hyperion Bridge. And LaClaw was very helpful in organizing an awareness where there was a very sick person attacking people who hasn't happened in 2 years, but it was a pattern of a long time. And interesting enough, there was a woman crossing the bridge. And I thought as she stepped how and what is going through her brain, because I'm sure she's familiar with that in the neighborhood. No one should ever be fearful of walking anywhere, and no one should be disrespectful of anybody. And the mission and the importance of this day and other days like this is to continue the mission of awareness to also to change popular culture, because some of the popular culture shows that these things are okay, that these things are cool. No one should be harmed. Everybody should be respected, and especially those who are not able to defend themselves in any way, shape, or form for this year. So I thank you for the awareness, and I thank Cindy for her awareness too. Always Cindy, and also the Commission on the Status of Women. And I hope you repeat this sometime once a month, somewhere in the city, to bring the awareness, whether it's the school, end of school, or start of school, so that people have the awareness that everyone should be free to be able to move anywhere and have that heightened sense of respect, and no one should be disrespected for who they are or where they're from. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. For our next presentation, let me recognize Councilmember Perry. Ms. Perry?
Take your visitor's pad and put on your leg or something. Okay.
C-SPAN.
Okay. Yeah, right. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am standing here today with Council Members Zine, Marian Lozano of C-SPAN, and John Barak of Time Warner Cable to recognize the 25th anniversary of C-SPAN. Here with us today is Marian Lozano, correct? All right, of C-SPAN, and Mr. Barak is here behind me. During its incredible 25 years of service to the community, C-SPAN has reached the homes of 97% of cable watchers across our country. In fact, studies have shown that 1 in 5 households watches C-SPAN on a regular basis. During its time on the air, C-SPAN has reached its goal of giving its audience access to live gavel-to-gavel proceedings of the United States House of Representatives, Senate, and other forums where public policy is discussed, debated, and decided. What is truly unique about C-SPAN is that it presents these meetings and forums without editing, commentary, or analysis, and with a balanced presentation of points of view. This provides our public and those watching with direct access to understanding and engaging in the policy-making process. Additionally, elected officials and appointed officials and others who influence public policy have a forum to voice their opinions without having their views distorted or changed through an editing process. This is an important way in which the public can understand and hear from their elected official in a neutral environment. C-SPAN's call-in program also provides the public with direct access to their elected officials, decision makers, and local journalists. Last year, 25,000 viewer phone calls were aired on C-SPAN. C-SPAN has truly made an impact and has garnered the support of the public. To give you an idea about C-SPAN's popularity, an estimated 17 million people a week watch the 2000 to 2001 season, but 28 million viewers a week watched C-SPAN. So I want to join in congratulating C-SPAN on its 25th anniversary and to let everyone at home watching and here in the chamber know that the C-SPAN bus is parked outside on Main Street in front of City Hall East today from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. and is open to the entire public. Please go down, take a look, say hello when you have a chance, and learn more about how C-SPAN operates its broad spectrum of programming. Mr. Zine.
Thank you. You read my script perfectly. Thank you, Jan. Time Warner contacted me on this and said that we would like to acknowledge C-SPAN, and I want to appreciate the work that Time Warner does in my community. Dean Leavenworth and Lee Alpert, Lee Cannonball Alpert as I refer to him, and the wonderful programming that they have out there at Time Warner, and the cooperation with Time Warner and C-SPAN to bring it to the city of Los Angeles, to the City Hall, where we hope that many of the people around Los Angeles will come and visit, because we see it on cable, but to see it in real life operation is another true experience. We do have a congratulations for you from the City of Los Angeles. join in commemorating your 25 years of service to the community. Thank you for continuing to inform and engage the public about the issues and people that shape all levels of government. And it's amazing that it's been around for 25 years and going strong. As we come into the upcoming election, I'm sure there'll be many, many more viewers of C-SPAN. So to you, from us, congratulations and welcome to Los Angeles. Are you traveling around with it through the tour? So as you travel around to other parts of the country, know that you have a warm welcome here in the city of Los Angeles. And to Time Warner, thank you for helping coordinate this today, because we are definitely partners with communications and education of our public of Los Angeles. And we're going to give the microphone over to you, and then to you, ladies first. There you go.
Thank you for having us here today. As the gentleman just mentioned, the C-SPAN school bus is parked on Main Street in front of the City Hall, and we'd like to invite the City Council to come out and speak on Time Warner Cable about the importance of public service and getting involved in the election process. Again, we are on Main Street, and we'd also like to open it up to all of the members here, everybody here visiting City Hall today, to come out and see the bus and tour it. And we're honored here to be working here today with Time Warner Cable. As was previously mentioned, we are celebrating our 25 years as a national cable network, and we have been funded by the cable industry that entire time. We are a nonprofit network, and Time Warner Cable has been one of our staunchest supporters. So we're really honored again to be working with them today.
I'd like to thank the City Council for having us here today, and wanted to mention I'm here representing Time Warner and Dean Leavenworth, who's in Washington, D.C. on business this week. And once again, as Marion mentioned, we'd like to invite all of our elected officials down to visit the bus and also to be interviewed by Lee Cannon Alpert. Lee Cannonball Alpert, okay. We'll be speaking about educating and involving young people in the electoral process, which is, of course, important any time, but especially this being an election year. So we'd like to invite you all to come down and be interviewed. Those interviews will be airing on Time Warner Cable and also throughout the city of Los Angeles. And once again, the public is invited to come down, city employees, anyone who'd like to come and visit the bus. So please stop by, and thanks again for having us.
Give the location again.
It is right down in front of the building on Main Street, right in front of City Hall. We'll be here from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Thanks.
Mr. Cardenas?
Hold on.
I have a question to the C-SPAN folks. Is this the same bus that was out in front of the school?
Yes, same bus that was over at Grand High School that you were so kind enough to come out
So
and
you
visit.
actually interact with students around the country?
Yes, we take the buses all over the country working with cable systems. We generally visit schools, that's the name, C-SPAN School Bus, and we bring students on board to talk to them about the programming on C-SPAN and how they can watch television critically and get involved in the political process.
In addition to that, it's my understanding that aside from the, 5 cents fee that goes to C-SPAN, that is, voluntary, or can you explain that to us, please?
Yes, we are totally funded by the cable industry, which is why we don't have any commercials, and we're able to show everything live gavel-to-gavel coverage. So companies like Time Warner, what they do is they take about 5 cents a month from all their subscribers' bills and direct that to us. So we do cost them money. They don't need to keep us on the air, but they do offer us to their subscribers as a public service.
And in addition to that, they actually help out, like to bring the bus to City Hall or to bring the bus to particular sites. They give additional support each individual cable company, correct?
Yes, we let them know that we're going to be in town. For example, we let Time Warner know we were going to be in town, and they picked this venue for us to come to today. But we are free. They're not, it doesn't cost them anything to have us here.
So this service is not required by the government?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, not at all. And
Thank you. The reason why I wanted to point that out, colleagues, is because I think this is a perfect example where you have private industry doing the right thing and doing it out of their own volition. And it's really good to see that. I did get a chance to visit the bus. They actually had dozens of kids on the bus, one dozen at a time on the bus. They were explaining what C-SPAN's about. The kids kind of didn't understand why there wasn't commercials and things of that nature. But I think that's a good thing for them to start understanding that not everything has to be marketed that way, and you can have unadulterated, coverage of issues, which is very, very important in this country of free speech. One of the things that I wanted to give you just a little bit of advice, maybe in here inviting a bunch of 15 elected officials to go out in front of a camera and give a little speech might not cause too much of a stampede. but like Antonio and I were in the legislature, but if you do that in the state assembly floor, there's 80 of them. Somebody might get hurt, so you might want to not give such a free invitation for politicians to get in front of a camera. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're going to go back and take some photographs. I also, before we leave the microphone, introduce here with us this morning Valley Leadership Institute, the latest class, and Ken Ashford, who's coordinating. Ken, come on forward, please. If the members of the class, Valley Leadership, will please stand and take a bow, and we'll applaud you and acknowledge you for being here today. All the representatives from Valley Leadership, and it's a program I graduated from, Councilman Padilla, President, and I think Tony Cardenas. I don't know how many others attended Valley Leadership, but it's a wonderful program, and they're doing City Hall today, the tour of City Hall, the roots of politics here in City Hall in the city of Los Angeles. So we welcome you. I met with you this morning along with some of my colleagues and the mayor, and you have an exciting day here at City Hall. We want to officially acknowledge you, and Ken, you're going to have just a couple minutes to say hello. Ken Ashford, who's coordinating today's event.
Mr. President, members of council, thank you very much. Valley Leadership is a 10-month public policy program that focuses on issues in the San Fernando Valley. Besides Councilman Cardenas and Councilman Padilla and my good friend Alex, we have several staff members, chief of staffs who are graduates. Mitch Englander was part of our class of Valley Leadership. He works for Councilman Zine. Felipe Fuentes, who works for Councilman Padilla, was also part of our class. So it's a very good institute. We look forward for the council members to come up. We'll be in the Tom Bradley Room. In fact, we invite all the council members just to come up to the Tom Bradley Room sometime today and to say hello. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And have a great day here at City Hall. It's a very interesting time to be here. Mr. Reyes for another introduction.
Yes, thank you, Council President. The schools of District 1 have walked in, and we have Buchanan Street School. If you could just stand, Buchanan Street. I see you folks back there. Come on, stand up. Don't be shy. Everybody know that you were at school and you're in City Hall. Welcome to City Hall. I look forward to seeing you walking the building. And council colleagues, what I'll probably be doing for the next few weeks is bringing the grammar schools of my district into City Hall, and hopefully they'll be bringing their parents afterwards to visit this great public asset we have in our communities. Thank you.
There they are.
Mr. Villegas.
Yes, Mr. President, members, I also have an introduction. I know that the council member from the 1st Councilmanic District, Mr. Reyes, also introduced them, but I'd like the honor of introducing the Aldama Elementary School teacher, Mr. Kim. They still here? Yes. Why don't you stand up? Stand up, the young people from Aldama Elementary School in Highland Park and the Annandale Elementary School. Can the Annandale Elementary School students please stand up as well? Yes. Mrs. Long, teacher. So welcome. And also the Highland Park Neighborhood Council is present. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Villegas. And we do have one final presentation by Councilmember Parks and Councilmember Villegas.
Come on over. How are you all? Good to see you. Are any of you in the promotora? Yes, good. Councilmember Parks. Well, Mr. President, members, it is fitting that we're here today making this presentation on Denim Day, because I would submit to you that these two issues in many ways are related. We live in a time in America when much progress has been made with respect to women's rights, with respect to the dignity of women and how we treat them, especially with respect to the law. There was a day when there were very few women members on the city council. In fact, there were none. It was a day when we had very few legislators. There was also a day when a woman couldn't make a decision about what to do with her body and her health. There was a day when they had to sneak in the dead of night to go to a doctor if a woman wanted to have an abortion. There was a time in America when our laws didn't give a woman the right to make decisions about her body and her health. And a lot has changed, especially since Roe versus Wade. There have been laws on the books giving a woman the right that we think is inalienable, and that is the right to make a decision about her body. We know that in 1993, this council declared Los Angeles to be a pro-choice city, and that last year the city urged the Congress and the President of the United States to stand firm in support of the Freedom of Choice Act. But we also know that we've seen an erosion in state legislatures. We've seen an erosion in the Congress, observing and protecting and respecting a woman's right to choose. And so today we honor Planned Parenthood and the Los Angeles March for Women's Lives, and the march to bring attention in the country about the slippage that's occurring with respect to a woman's right to choose. I, as a father, can tell you with 3 daughters, one now 29, the other 26, and the other 11, have had to make this choice myself, the choice of whether or not, as a parent, that I had a right to intercede in making decisions about my daughters' lives and their health. And I chose early on, when they were young girls, not an easy decision, but chose early on to respect their right as young women to make decisions about their body. And so today, we honor Planned Parenthood in their effort to raise the consciousness of the country, not only among women, but among men as well, of the importance of respecting a woman's right to choose, of the importance of respecting a woman's right to make decisions about her health that is so important. I've had an opportunity to work with Planned Parenthood now for over a decade. I've worked with the promotoras, a wonderful effort and initiative on the part of Planned Parenthood, where they get women to educate other women about the choices available to women with respect to their health and with respect to their bodies. And I can tell you that those young women and those women involved in the promotoras have developed a leadership, not just on the issue of a woman's right to choose, but on overall health issues. I remember the promotora standing with me in support of the Healthy Families Program, standing with me and with the legislature on so many issues with respect to health, and especially the very important issues related to women's health. And so today, on Denim Day, April 21st, as we're educating the city and the country about the need to understand sexual assault and what it means, we also want to continue to educate the country as a city about the need for us to respect a woman's right to choose and the need for us to march together, men and women, all of us, Democrat and Republican, for the idea that this slippage that we've seen over the last few years is a slippage that we cannot tolerate in this country. We can't tolerate it for our daughters. We can't tolerate it for our sisters. We can't tolerate it for our mothers. We must stand together for a woman's right to choose. With me is Councilmember Bernard Parks, who has also signed on and sponsored this resolution on the part of the City of Los Angeles. Councilmember Parks.
Thank you, Antonio, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you on this important issue. And I think it's so important for us not to forget our history. Before this movement, before a great deal of community involvement, we have to remember that there were 200,000 to 1.2 million illegal abortions in this country before Roe versus Wade. Having been a part of many demonstrations in this city in the late 80s, early 90s on dealing with abortion clinics, the common sense approach of dealing with those were Planned Parenthood that came to the aid of the police department and talked about what the real issues were and how the deployment and what were the concerns, and that allowed us to understand the issue. And I think it's important to honor those who are sponsoring this march, that from the Planned Parenthood of National Organization for Women, we also have the ACLU, we also have the Black Women's Health Imperative, the National Latina Institute for Reproduction Health. These are things that I think have grown out of that movement where people saw the unfairness of organization deciding on how other people should lead their lives. Although that march is going to be in the Capitol, all of us are in full support of it. I think that we highlighted today to ensure that everyone living in the city of LA understands the position of this city that it took several years ago, that it is a city that supports that choice for each individual. And I think it's important for us to also realize that as we move forward, we are one vote away from the possibility of the U.S. Supreme Court overturning this important decision. This is something that would be intolerable. It's something that we should be looking at and working towards to make sure that we will never return to a situation in this country prior to Roe versus Wade. And so I'm just pleased to be here with Antonio, and also want to thank all of you for being here in support of this great cause.
Thank you, Councilmember Parks. We have with us Amy Axelby, representing the Planned Parenthood organization, who is sponsoring this March for Women's Lives, for a few words.
Thank you so much for this. We really appreciate it. I brought a few members of our 500-plus delegation that is going to represent the city of Los Angeles and the greater Los Angeles community in Washington, D.C. on your behalf. We have been able to raise funds to scholarship close to 90 young people and people of color in the community. So our t-shirts say, "I am the face of pro-choice Los Angeles." We intend to represent Los Angeles through the diverse communities that exist here in LA. And I also want to make sure you all know that if you're not able to join us in Washington, D.C., there is another march, a demonstration in Westwood at the Federal Building from 9 to 12 on Sunday. So if you can't be in Washington, join us in solidarity in Westwood. Thank you very much.
Also have Mr. Garcetti and Ms. Gruhl who want to add a few words. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to Mr. Villaraigosa and Mr. Parks and to Planned Parenthood. I'll be joining you in Washington and looking forward to marching, and I have to get one of those T-shirts so I can let them know I'm here from Los Angeles. And I wanted to thank the promotoras, too, who have been a lot of community events that we've done in the district. It's just so important that the strength of Los Angeles be represented this weekend, but I think it's going to be an historic number. I mean, when we look at how many people are talking about descending there and how important it is, every locality has to stand up, and people have to know this is exactly about what the title says, saving women's lives. It is not a luxury. This is not about choice. It's not a preference. It's about full access to basic human rights and control of one's body, and really appreciate all the great work that you're doing. I'll be very proud, and I'll be looking out for each one of you during the march.
Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. And I know on item number 47, we're going to be able to pass something that supports this activity that's going to be in Washington, D.C. And I participated in the last big march when I was working for Mayor Bradley. Took a red-eye flight because I had work to do, but I wanted to be there, and I just came for the day, and it was such an incredible experience for me and something that I will carry with me forever. I can't be there on Sunday in D.C., but hopefully we'll be there Sunday here in Los Angeles. But I want to share the comments that have been made by my colleagues. This is about women's lives. This is about a woman's choice, a woman's decision between her and her doctor. I stood in front of many clinics over the years protecting that women's right and talking to some of the women who were scared to death because they were being stopped from being able to go in and get the kind of services they need, those health care services that were so critical, and to be able to exercise their choice. And we still need to do everything we can to ensure that women do have the right to choose. And events like these are so critically important to remind everyone in this country that the majority of people in this country believe that a woman has a right to do what it's her body. And I think that we need to remind everyone, not just on one day, but every day of the year, and to support women in this very, very important choice in their life. So thank you to Planned Parenthood. Give my best to Martha Swiller, who is one of my good friends, who has done an incredible job in leading Planned Parenthood. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we present you all? So on behalf of the City of Los Angeles, we'd like to present you with this resolution in support of your initiative to March for Women's Lives.
Thank you very much, and this concludes presentations for today's meeting. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Mr. President, there is a special motion, one that has been distributed to the council members, presented by Councilmember Perry, Villaraigosa, and Padilla, and the city attorney will speak to the findings.
Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, the Arts, Parks, Health, and Aging Committee learned that the Cultural Affairs Department had entered into an interim contract to operate the LATC. Immediate action is required to expeditiously correct the situation and have the Cultural Affairs Department operate the LATC until the RFP process is concluded so that current productions at LATC are not jeopardized. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Are there any questions about the findings, members? If not, let's open the roll on the findings. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
All right, the matter is now before us, and I have Ms. Perry who would like to speak,
I think my other colleagues may as well.
and Mr. Padilla also.
Yeah. And I think Mr. Villaraigosa will be speaking when he comes back into the room. I want to thank Mr. Padilla and Mr. Villaraigosa for signing onto this motion after yesterday's meeting. The committee and council members had been informed that the Cultural Affairs Department had given interim control of the Los Angeles Theater Center to an independent contractor. This agreement had not been reviewed through a standard process through the council office or by the Office of the City Attorney, and apparently there were representatives from the Office of the City Attorney there to testify to that effect yesterday. Therefore, poses some serious questions that must be considered today. And Mr. Villaraigosa, Mr. Padilla, and I felt that it was important to bring some clarity to the situation. It is, I believe, imperative that the Cultural Affairs Department continue to operate the Theater Center until a contract is forwarded to full council for approval and execution. Further, the Los Angeles Theater Center is a cultural treasure, and I ask that all other matters regarding the center be considered with the same diligence that we would give to any other transaction involving an asset in our city. And I hope that all of you will support this motion today and continue to work within the process. We've had a very long mediation process and still in process. have some recommendations that are pending on the table that we will vote on eventually when we get a report back, I guess, at the next committee meeting. But this is a culturally significant theater center, a culturally significant destination for downtown Los Angeles, and we must work effectively together to make sure that it is able to operate and to thrive and expand and continue its visionary programming and outreach to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Mr. Padilla?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, I want to thank Ms. Perry for her work on this item thus far, because it certainly hasn't been an easy issue. But the Los Angeles Theater Center is very important. It's a wonderful asset in the 9th District and a tremendous resource for the entire city, really, for those of you familiar with the facility and the program offerings and events that are hosted there throughout the course of the year. But colleagues, this is a very important issue, and today's discussion is just a preview. In committee, we've been discussing, and we'll continue to discuss, how to resolve an agreement that was inappropriately processed and entered into by the city. Our city attorney is guiding us very closely on that. The big question here, where we want to be at the end of the day, is discussing the vision, the future of the Los Angeles Theater Center, and how to best utilize it for everybody's benefit throughout the city, throughout the region, on a going forward basis. And there's been an RFP process that's begun. Some of the options that Ms. Perry has presented in the form of a letter to the committee are to conclude that RFP process, to renew that RFP process. Do we want to at any point sell the building or enter into a partnership? Those are the greater questions before us. What's before us today, however, is what are we doing in the meantime? And after the discussion that we had in committee and all the fact-finding and hearing from people on both sides of it, I felt compelled that it was the most appropriate thing to do to return the control of the building immediately into the hands of the city, and to not have to look outside the city for the staffing of the facility, for security of the facility, but rather to do it with our own personnel. So the Cultural Affairs Department has said that they're willing to step up and do that once again. They've controlled the facility in the past and only recently have let go of control of the facility. We have GSD and other departments ready to step up and help secure the facility and manage and maintain the facility. So the step we're taking today is to retake control of the building on a near-term basis while we try to get our arms around the question of what is the best use of this facility on a long-term basis, on a going-forward basis, and looking at what the most appropriate process is to achieve that goal. So we would appreciate your support for this motion signed by Ms. Perry and Mr. Villaraigosa. Know that this is a preview of other discussions and decisions yet to come, but for the interim basis, I think it's the best possible next step to take, which is to have the Cultural Affairs Department, with the support of GSD, to get back into this building. Let's retake control, protect the programming and the events that are already on schedule and forthcoming, and let's continue to resolve the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Councilmember Ludlow.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to rise in support of this motion as well. Yesterday in the Arts, Parks, Health, and Aging Committee, Councilmember Labange adjourned us into closed session, and I think it was a good call. Councilmember Perry has demonstrated a great amount of leadership on this issue, and I wanted to also allude, as Council President Padilla did, to a letter that she sent to all of us on the floor, laying out at least 5 options for this great facility. And I think what has come to light has really put a lot of people at risk, and as Councilmember Perry indicated, this was an oversight of some sort or some mishap that happened in the Cultural Affairs Department. But what is really important is that nobody be punished, and that the theater itself not be punished, and the people throughout the city of LA who rely on this theater for its services not be punished. And so I think the 2 tracks that we're operating on here, clearly, one is to try to clean up the mess that happened, but the other one is the long-term vision for this theater in Council District 9. And so I rise in support of this motion to congratulate Councilmember Perry in taking a very difficult task, and also the work of Councilmember Villaraigosa and Mr. Padilla in trying to bring this to light. I think this is a good step to allow the Cultural Affairs Department to take over operations right now and to make sure that there is no closure, and that the services can continue, and would encourage an aye vote on this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Villaraigosa.
Yes, I too want to acknowledge a few people. First of all, Councilmember Perry for her leadership on this issue. Councilmember Labange, Ludlow, and Padilla for vindicating the idea that when anything happens in this city with respect to city resources, with respect to an impact on public policy in the city, that decision go through the council. Because the council's the entity ultimately that has responsibility for making those kinds of decisions. Decisions about how we expend our resources, decisions about what we prioritize. And so I thank Councilmember Perry, Labange, Ludlow, and Mr. Padilla. But I also want to say something about this asset in the center, and it's especially important that this go through a full discussion of the council, because when you look at LA and what Los Angeles has to offer the world, we've often said it's the diversity, it's the culture, it's the richness of the tapestry of cultures that we have here in this great city. And we know that one community, a number of communities have not been able to participate, but one community is certainly the Latino community, who oftentimes, although they're a big part of the city, have never really had an opportunity to demonstrate and show its culture, the contributions that it makes. And I want to speak for the idea that that's something that should be important in this city. We want everybody to feel welcome, everybody to be able to participate. And so I think this motion gives us that opportunity to step back for a second, allow the Cultural Affairs Department to continue to operate the center so that we can have a broader discussion about what we'd like to see here at the LA Theater Center. So I urge your aye vote, and I thank you again, all of you, for your leadership on this issue.
Councilmember Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. I also rise in support of this motion. I too want to recognize Councilmember Perry and Villaraigosa, seeing that this incredible asset is right on the border of two very rich and diverse districts, and to look at what statement we're making today, especially in light of the fact that when you have potential talent, when you have the kind of productions that occur here, we're talking about an entity that is nationally recognized, nationally known. And that entity is Latino Theater Center. And we should be cultivating, we should be supporting, we should be finding ways in which we can bring this great talent from our neighborhoods to the theater. My experience there was an incredible play called Dementia. And it spoke to how a Latino goes through those tribulations and transitions as they are dying of AIDS, and the whole issue of AIDS in our community. Very controversial issue, but it laid it out beautifully. It talked about the impact on family and neighborhood, and it spoke about lessons and educating communities. And these are the type of venues we need to have. And so in every culture, whether it be in the Chinese community, Japanese, Southeast Pacific Islands, African American culture, Latino culture, we need to have those venues. And they should be quality, and they should be of status that I've seen Latino Theater Center produce. So to have this debate is important, to have that access is important, and to understand what role we have as city leaders to cultivate this talent is very significant. So I want to thank my colleagues for putting it on the table, put it right in the public eye, make it very transparent, and let's understand what we're doing with our young talent and seasoned talent in this city.
Thank you. Councilmember Labange.
Thank you very much, and I thank the makers of the motion, Ms. Perry, Mr. Villaraigosa, and seconded by Mr. Padilla. I'd like to ask Mr. Thomas at the table, I'll ask Jerry Miller at the table, P.J. Echeverria at the table, so we see exactly what we're talking about. Members, through the course of the challenges of the day and the many days that we've had, we have had to ask for our public buildings to sometimes have outside operators operate them. So there is an RFP that went out on this, correct, Mr. Miller?
That's correct.
And that RFP system was right and fair?
Well, the Cultural Affairs Department has not sent forward the results of the RFP to you, so...
Okay, good.
at
So
this
it's
point-
not done yet. So we
Right.
want to make sure they're clear, so people who are seeing it. And what is before us, basically, is that in the intern, they ask a tenant in the building, correct? A tenant in the building to operate the building, which they should have got city council approval, correct?
Correct.
Is that our city attorney? And yesterday, in our committee, we found this out for the first time, right?
That is correct.
And so we did what is the right thing, is come to all of us to make a decision to remind the Department of Cultural Affairs that they must go through process, and it must be the right process. Our challenge, as this building is, and it's wonderful to have all kinds of programming, and it's especially passionate when you have people who have had programming there for a long time, but to make sure that the building is paid for in the process of government. So that's why we went out for RFP, right? We did the same thing at the Merced Theater and the San Pedro Theater, correct?
At the
What
Madrid
other
Theater.
theaters?
Madrid.
Madrid Theater,
Yeah.
excuse me. Merced Theater is in Merced.
Right.
Right, Highway
It's actually
99.
It's actually at El Pueblo, Mr. LeBron.
I can't only, it's not just my glasses, I want to let you know. Okay, I don't know what's wrong with the microphone. But anyway, what we have here is a good motion. What we have here is something, though, that will then get us on the right track. But the thing I also wanted to say, there were some concerns about in the time, and maybe Mr. Thomas from Cultural Affairs could answer, some of the piano, I believe, was moved from there. Where is that piano now?
The piano, that was moved
Yes.
from LATC,
Right.
it's probably at the Warner Grand Theater, which is one of our theaters.
So it's a
And-
cultural affairs. So
it's
the piano-
we move it back and forth through the.
I understand, so
when we
that
need it.
piano, said other material may have been moved. I want to make sure that it's all done on the up and the up. And I also think too here, because there is some, there's been passion on both sides and discussion on both sides. I'm looking at the people who are passionate and discussing things, that I think it's everyone's intent to do what they think is the right thing. And I'm sorry for the microphone. I apologize. Oh, no, somebody just said it's to stop talking. I think that's unfair. That's the first time anybody told me that, Tony. But it won't be the last time. But I know with the passion out there, it's going to come back again, and we want to do the right thing. We want to make sure it's economic sense for the city of Los Angeles, and make sure it's cultural sense for Los Angeles. Cultural sense. So we have a great challenge to meet those things. The economic sense, you agree? And the cultural sense, which is so important. And to have that, to be able to jump over that. Mr. City Attorney, do you have anything else you got to tell us?
No, I think you know it all now.
Okay, thank you. I like that. Repeat that. You think I know it all. I like it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. We now have special one before us. Members, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. We will send it forthwith. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Padilla?
Madam Chair, forthwith, please, and also quick request. I believe item 8 is next, a matter out of the Commerce Committee. There's also, following that is item 27. If it's okay, I'd love to take item 27 out of order. It shouldn't take too long, but we do have 3 speaker cards on that item.
All right, is there any objection to taking item 27 out of order at this time? If not, then we will have item 27 before us, and it is a required public hearing. Let me call the names of the 3 people who submitted cards and ask you to come forward to the podium and address us. First, we have Mary Benson, David Hernandez, and Jose San Miguel. Please come forward and address us on this item.
Good morning, council members. My name is Mary Benson, and past generations of my family have lived in Stonehurst since before Hansen Dam or the Lopez Canyon landfill were built. It continues to be our home. The Hansen Dam environment definitely needs a cleanup, but the Foothill Trails District Neighborhood Council estimates that the future proceeds from the Lopez Canyon Energy Partners Agreement will be approximately $2.7 million. The kind of cleanup we need right now in Hansen Dam is a permanent police presence. preferably a mounted patrol unit to clean up the growing crime, which includes armed and sexual assaults. Yesterday, Mayor Hahn put safety at the top of his list of city priorities. I am begging this council to do the same. I implore you, don't decide today to commit millions of future dollars to a janitorial fund and pick a firm for maintaining a building that has yet to break ground. In the meantime, please help the families and the wildlife which need protection now, a police patrol in Hanson Dam. Please amend this motion and refer it to an Audit and Efficiency Committee for a complete analysis of the $8 million coming from this fund and paid for mitigation. We need to know how those funds benefited the environment impacted by the Lopez Canyon landfill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning. My name is David Hernandez. And thank you for this opportunity. You know, on face value, this seems like a pretty good motion. I remember taking my children to the Children's Museum here in Los Angeles. And, you know, that's actually a good thing. However, what is really important and what really needs to be addressed is the location of where this museum is going to be placed is right in the middle of an environmental area that is in dire need of funds to maintain that environmental area for the entire community. And I've been asked by members of the community to come in and address you today. And before I speak any further, what I want to bring up is the issue of community, that the community is not divided up amongst a lot of different separate Latino communities or equestrian communities or the environmental communities. There is one community combined of a lot of different sections. And that is important, that this area, this regional park, services all of the community. It services the equestrian, services the environmentalists. In that particular area, you have endangered species, you have endangered plants, you have an opportunity to bring all of the community to that area to have a real lesson in environmental issues, to divert funds from the area with regards directing it to a maintenance fund for a museum is tantamount to building a zoo in an endangered species habitat to study the endangered species at the expense of the endangered species. This is a particular area that can be used to bring children from the community around from Pacoima and Sun Valley and North Hollywood and Sylmar and bring them there to study the environment, an actual hands-on in the actual environment. But there are things that need to be addressed. There are slabs of concrete that have been there for years that are on decomposing wooden posts that create a hazard to the people in there. There are the lack of restroom facilities. There is the crime. The environment in that area deserves the funds that were allocated for that, not just to study the environment, to protect the environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jose San Miguel, and I am part of the community in Hanson Dam. About close to 3 years ago, we ran a research in Hanson Dam and the needs of the people, and we went to the world to raise signatures, and we get a few thousand signatures in order to solicitate or ask District 7, office to have some kind of protection because a lot of women and even car theft in the area. So we need security. We were asking for some trash cans. We were asking to fix the parking lot, receiving tickets, the people right there without any signs, without any marking in the parking lot. And years before it was completely destroyed. And it's still there. After almost 3 years, it's still completely destroyed. We need funds to fix those parking lots. We need those funds in order to feel safe for the families they come there. So in these people who sign these signatures, over a few thousand people who come in the daily basis to the Hanson Dam because it's a health issue. They come to joke, to walk for reasons of diabetes, for reasons of arthritis, all kind of stuff, and a lot of children from the school who come with their parents. So I asking you to put a little attention to those needs in Hansandem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes the public hearing from the cards that were submitted on this matter. Let me now recognize Councilmember Padilla.
So, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Colleagues, appreciate your attention on this item and your support for the matter that's before us today. It has gone through committee, and we have recommended approval. Let me just put the public speakers into a proper and historical context here. When I first came into office, there was a project that I inherited, a proposal or a concept for a project by my predecessor to create an environmental awareness center in the Northeast San Fernando Valley. A good idea in concept, but something that was never really fleshed out. And it was both physically and technically tied to a library project out in the Northeast San Fernando Valley in the Hanson Dam area. And so the actual funding source that we're talking about are funds generated through, after the closure of the Lopez Canyon landfill, when we put in our methane gas collection systems. It's a common practice now. We contract with a private entity that turns that methane gas into energy, and the city has a joint revenue sharing agreement. So the city's revenues had been dedicated to this environmental awareness center that had really not come to fruition. And so what I did is I separated the two projects, an environmental awareness center and the library. And for the first couple of years, we dedicated some of the funding from the Lopez Canyon revenues to the library to fill a budget gap. And we now have there, standing on the corner of Foothill and Osborne, the highest sustainable designed and built library and city building in Los Angeles. Something that the community, because of the landfill and their increased environmental awareness and sensitivity, points to with pride. When that library was finished and opened, we then turned our attention to the Environmental Awareness Center. And in fact, that project is moving forward. You all know it as the Children's Museum. It's a Children's Museum of Los Angeles with an environmental awareness and education component and emphasis. And so now what we're trying to do is take these same funds and do some technical amendments so that these revenues now on a going forward basis can be utilized for the Children's Museum as well. And it's going to be right adjacent to the library on a piece of property, by the way, that isn't in the middle of endangered species. We're not talking about building a zoo, as somebody mentioned. We're talking about this Children's Museum that you're all very aware of to be built on what is currently just a vacant lot on the corner of Foothill and Osborne, above the floodplain, away from the sensitive habitat in the greater Hanson Dam area that makes up more than 2,000 acres. And that's what we're trying to achieve here. So I would really appreciate your support. The greater context of this here, this is part of the $25 million that has made its way to Hanson Dam over the last 5 years, with another $15 million on the way for the museum, for the library, for ball fields, for horse trails, for open space preservation, for native habitat protection, and for all the wonderful things that we have going on Hanson Dam. It is a very diverse area. We have passive recreation uses, we have active recreation uses, we have a very diverse community in and around the Hanson Dam area, and I think helping the Children's Museum along is part of the anchor of a great future for that part of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. The matter is now before us, as a report indicates, and as Mr. Padilla explained. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That matter is approved, and we will send that as well forthwith. Next item.
Item number 8 was called special by Councilmember Cardenas.
Mr. Parks.
We take number 42 out of order just for a technical amendment.
All right, is there objection to taking 42 out of order for a quick technical amendment? If not, then item 42 is before us.
Okay, I just would like to reverse the order. We inadvertently put that the money's moving from the salary, from GPS to salary, and it should be the reverse. That's all.
All right, we've heard that expression. Any problem with that? That technical amendment is now before us. Open the roll on item 42. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. 49, you would like forthwith as well. That will be the order. I believe that now brings us to item 8, and Mr. Cardenas called that special. Mr. Cardenas?
Thank you, Madam President. Could we have a representative from the Department of Water and Power come forward? Also, it may be necessary, there might be some questions asked of CH2M Hill. Is there a representative of CH2M Hill here? We covered this issue somewhat extensively in the Commerce Committee, and rightfully so, there are members of this council who have not seen this item before them in committee, and they have various questions. Some of those questions will be repetitive questions that occurred during committee, but I have some that I'd like to have answered in this forum as well. First of all, the question is to DWP, under what circumstances was CH2M Hill originally retained on this project?
CH2M Hill was originally obtained through a contract with the City Attorney's Office for expert witness during the negotiations with the Great Basin Unified Air Pollution Control District. They reviewed the district's reports, memos, and provided arguments against or for whatever the case was needed by the city attorney.
So was that a pilot study? How would you label that?
There was really no engineering or planning or design work done with that. It was all basically a technical look at the arguments that the Air District was making. They did not produce any plan of how to go forward prior to our agreement with the Air District. They did not produce any cost estimates of how much it would cost. That didn't start till later.
Okay, who made those cost estimates, and what was that cost estimate at the time that DWP committed to this agreement?
The cost estimate was made by Parsons Engineering at the time. And
was that Parsons?
Parsons, yes, sir. That cost estimate was $120 million. It was for 22 and a half square miles of dust control measures on the lake, and really only to a time frame up to 2003, where it was acknowledged at the time that the Air District would come up with its final plan for the full scope that the department would be on the hook for.
So just shy of 24 square miles, the estimate at that time, and the understanding that the DWP ratepayers would be on the hook for about $120 million?
Yes, sir.
And now we finally have our arms around, it's, what is it, 29.8 square miles?
Yes, sir. We've been able to do the appropriate research and design. We're two-thirds done with the project, and you're correct. The district has claimed and has gone on record and is federally enforceable that the total square miles is 29.8 square miles.
29.8 square miles. Now, what occurred between, well, 29.8 square miles, $415 million is the estimate by the time we finish that portion of the mitigations?
Yes, sir.
And how much of that money has been spent to date, or committed and the work has been done?
Approximately $260 million.
Approximately $260 million. So we have about $140 plus million to go?
Yes, sir.
Now, what portion of that $140 million would CH2M Hill conceivably be participating in based on what we have before us today?
Approximately $50 million.
$50 million. So are we conceivably, unless we change the way DWP does business on extensions of contracts and amendments, would CH2M Hill conceivably be involved in any amendments, or their contract be involved in any amendments on the remaining portion of that $415 million beyond what we have today?
No.
No?
If I understand the question correctly.
Okay.
Maybe you want to state it again.
What we have before us today is extensions of the original contract with CH2M Hill.
Yes.
On the mitigation project over at Owens Lake.
Correct.
Correct? And that total sum comes out to $120 million.
Their contract is a total of $106 million. They currently are operating under a $55 million contract, and we're seeking approval of another 51 total. We're breaking that up, $35 million on the first. We'll come back to this council in 2 years to seek the remaining amount.
Okay. Okay, that's what I mean.
Yes, you're correct. Yeah, we're splitting it up. In 2 years, we'll seek the final amount of funds that we requested.
And what is that estimate?
It is broken down into 35 million right now, and then an additional 16 million in 2 years. So it's a 2-year plus a 2-year option.
Now, what caused a delay in, or who can, maybe Jerry, you can answer this for me. What caused the delay or the difference in time between when the board took up this action, or excuse me, when the department took up this action and the council seeing it before it, whether it be committee or council or what have you, that it was submitted to the council?
I'm not sure that I understand your question. Basically, it went through the normal process of the board approving the amendment in terms of the current activity and coming to you. If you're referring back to the previous 2 amendments that did not get to this board, that has to do with a misunderstanding of the requirements within staff and within the city attorney's office when the city attorney reviewed it.
Now, could you describe that misunderstanding? What do you mean by that?
When the city attorney reviewed the package of the amendments that went to our board, ordinarily all amendments would go to our board first and come down to this council. The city attorney who reviewed the amendments was a different attorney than the attorney who originally prepared the package for the original contract. And he did not understand the need to bring it back down and had advised us that it was not necessary to come down. Upon review, at the time we brought down this contract at the end of the 3 years, which does definitely require, under any circumstances, those 3 years requires council approval, it came to light that it should have come down before in the first 2.
Okay. The second half of what was discussed in committee has to do with the Department of Water and Power coming forth to the committee and explaining how that is not going to happen again?
That is correct. We're going to have a report to you within 30 days of last Tuesday explaining why it is not going to happen, why it did happen, and putting in place a process which will assure that it will not happen again.
Basically, that process will set a bright line on any instance like this in the future, where we have a standardized form that goes to our board, and there will be a question that asks, does this item before the board today, did it receive prior council approval? And that will automatically force it to go back then to council.
You said earlier, you mentioned that Parsons was the engineering firm that actually advised. From my understanding, it was David Friedman, who was the head of the Department of Water and Power at the time. And was it at his level that the agreement was made or the settlement to go forth with this mitigation project?
Yes, sir.
It was his signature basically at his level that commitment was made?
Yes and no. It was at his level, the initial MOU was ratified, but it was brought before this council and unanimously approved following his initial signing of the MOU.
Mr. Cardenas, if you could either conclude or I'll press your button again. There's other speakers.
Okay, I'll do it again. Thank you.
All right. Let me recognize at this time Councilmember Labange. Is Mr. Labange? I recognize Councilmember Labange, who pushed his button.
I apologize for stepping out there for a second. You're not going to speak on this mic. There's no question, Mr. Cardenas, we understand what water power has to do up there. And it's a process that we always got to make sure is done right. And I just wanted to thank you and your committee for this and that understanding. And I want to thank you for your leadership on this. And I say that on water power leadership because this Owens Lake was a terminal lake, right, at one time. And that meant all the water that flowed into the lake was at the end. It was like a dead lake, if that's a proper term. But then we, in our vision, and I support that vision of several decades ago, brought water to the Pueblo, but in essence created a gigantic problem for Owens Valley when we took water out of Owens Lake and created a dry lake. Is that correct, Jerry?
That is correct.
And some of the worst air pollution in the air at certain times of the year is caused in this region, which is City of Los Angeles land, City of Los Angeles land owned by Water and Power because of the dry beds. And the work that you're doing and CH2M Hill is doing is to correct that. Is that correct?
That is correct. The Owens Lake has been identified as the largest recorded dust source in the United States.
Right, because of the unfortunate situation. What happened when you take water out of a terminal lake, and this will then turn that around for the people on Bridgeport, is that right?
Well, it basically affects more the local area, Keeler and Lone Pine and Ridgecrest.
Ridgecrest, excuse me. That will solve, ultimately, this will solve the problem. But it's a commitment that I remember was made by many several years ago, and it does take time to get these commitments completed. And I know it costs an awful lot of money, but it's doing the right thing. So I just want to stand and support this here. I just also want to make sure we always do the process right, and always remind ourselves to do the process right. Because when you do the process right, whatever the end result is, we've always done it the right way, and I appreciate what has taken place in here. The mission, the real mission to clean up this severe environmental problem is so important, and I want to stand and support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. The next speaker will be Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a couple of questions. One of the things, and I think we've seen a number of these issues dealing with amendments on contracts, but it is the expectation in '98 when the first contract was let, was there an expectation or was there knowledge that there would be subsequent amendments and that the ultimate cost of this project would go over $400 million? Or when was that decided?
This has been a whole series of decisions to start the process. Back in '98, when the first negotiations were going on, CH2 was brought in. At that point, we were actually looking at going into litigation rather than resolving. So there was no indication at that point in time that this would involve engineering work at all. We then moved into the stipulated agreement. We moved into resolving the problem. And CH2 was successful at bidding on a contract in, I think it was about 2001, to actually implement the design of the measures. At that point in time, we indicated that we were starting the first phase of it, and we knew there was going to be additional work. Again, we had agreed to 22 square miles, and we knew there would be more ultimately required. We did not know what that was going to be. And as we've gone through it, we've learned a lot. There's no place else that this has been done. And now, for about the past year and a half, we have had firm cost dollars based on the experience we've had on the lake, and we know the end game.
When you say they bid for a contract, was that the one that was negotiated, or was that sent out to bid for competitive?
It was sent out on a competitive RFP. This is not a hard construction contract. We have everything identified. You count the widgets. It was a professional services contract for the design, which was sent out to the 7 largest environmental engineering firms on the West Coast, and 2 firms actually competed proposals, and the CH2M was evaluated by approved criteria and came out with a successful proposal.
If this, everybody's talking about the process, if this was done properly, what time would this have come back to the council? Would it have been before the, which one of the amendments? I mean, it's gone to what, close to 100, I guess close to 100 million, and now we're asked to do something retroactively, and then we're asking for another, what, 51 million. So when would it have come back if it had been done properly?
It would have come back when we came for amendments number 1 and 2. Those were originally just one amendment, and the Board of Water and Power Commissioners asked for they to kind of be split in half so they could review it more. So it actually turned into 2, but in either case, that would have been the appropriate time. Since the council took action on the original contract, the agreement is to come back down to council at that time.
And that would have been, what, 1999?
That would have been in October of 2002 and in January of 2003, 1 and 2.
And you said, what was the reason? There was some complication with the legal advice as far as the city attorney?
Yes, the agreement was led under provisions in the city charter, what's called a competitive seal proposal, which requires the council to approve the criteria by which the agreement is selected. The attorney at the time that drafted the ordinance for that also added that the agreement itself be approved by council. Fast forward to those 2 amendments, the attorney at the time that was dealing with the amendments didn't realize that request for approval of the original contract had taken place, so there's nothing in the law that would have alerted him to that. Subsequently, we realized that that did in fact occur. And
Would there be something in place from the department that would know it should have come back?
At the time, there was not that process. Since then, we've developed a standardized board letter that asks the question, does this action require council approval? And what we're proposing to add, based on the direction from the Commerce Commission, is to add an additional checkbox. Was prior council action, did prior council action occur? And then that will be a bright line direction to then send it back to council.
And Mr. Cardenas asked a question earlier, and I don't know if I understood the response. I think he was asking, is the expectation of the future amendments that take us from 120 up to 400 million, is this company going to have a role in contracting or getting those amendments or competing for those additional costs?
Oh, I understand. No, they just do the planning and the design and help with the management. The remainder of those monies is for construction out on the lake, and they are not a construction firm.
So the issue today is that this is the final amendment for this phase of the contract?
It's the final amendment, and we've actually broken it up into two steps. So we'll be back in approximately 2 years for the final, not for the construction, but for the final portion of CH's work. We're asking basically a 2-year plus a 2-year option with the council and the mayor approving that final 2 as well.
And so what are you asking us today, to do the retroactive and then the final 2 phases for this amendment?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Our next speaker is Councilwoman Miskowski.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I appreciate what Mr. Cardenas is doing in terms of asking the questions here, because it points out a very, very important concern, and that we've seen far too often, and that we've seen when we get a project here asking for an approval of an amendment, we are often asked, and particularly again as we look to our proprietaries, we are asked to retroactively do something. We are the earlier item we just learned about today through the Arts Parks and Health Committee was about something that they just learned about yesterday, that again it needed retroactive work to make sure that something was done in a timely manner. This contract and another contract were issues that I actually testified before last week in front of the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee on how we should be handling processes and procedures and creating openness and transparency. And a lot of people are talking about, let's change the rules, let's adopt new rules, let's make new rules. And as we're learning in this case, we don't need new rules. All we need is to have agencies and departments and legal advice that get all of our city employees aware of what the rules are and make sure that they're following them well now. If we were doing that now, I don't think we'd have some of the problems and the headlines that we've had over the last couple of months. Having said that, let me assure the council that I think this contract is without question. The policies of what the department was doing or the staff was doing and bringing it to us and making sure we had regular ability to act on it as we should have is in question, but I think it's being corrected. But the underlying contract itself is a really, really remarkable contract. It's a remarkable project. It's one that is long overdue. It is one that in the background of what this city had been facing with what we had done in the Mono Basin by the air quality districts up there and the state of California EPA saying that the city of Los Angeles had done serious environmental damage in that area, needed to rectify it, needed to do it with standards that weren't yet clear, with magnitude that we didn't know how much it would cost, with just an unlimited potential future bill to the city ratepayers. We have now codified that, we have looked at it, that the Air Quality Maintenance District up there is saying remarkable things about this project, is saying that instead of suing, we are now in a partnership with DWP to correct those problems. And in fact, I dare say that this project that we will be building there in the near future, after we have things more specifically planned, it will be the model for the rest of the country. So this is one of the times when DWP itself and the project itself is doing very, very good things and should get credit for it. And I'm sorry that the
project got entangled with this process issue that is sort of entangling the rest of the city at the same time. But I would think this is one that there's no doubt in my mind that the underlying contract, the underlying approval, the underlying project should move forward, and that's why I think the committee recommended it wholeheartedly. But again, we unfortunately have you gentlemen here to talk about the issue of process, because there's just one too many that we are seeing all too normally that is problematic, and so that's why I think the serious questioning is going on. But I do ask for support on this to move this affirmation of the council affirming what DWP staff and the outside consultants have done to really do a masterful job in the Mono Basin that is long overdue.
Thank you, Ms. Mizikowski. Our last speaker is Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Mizikowski, for clarifying what a phenomenal job they've done on this project. To be under the scrutiny and the push and pull of almost every department, commission, authority you can imagine that would ever have an inkling to even think about what's going on up north at the Owens Valley is something phenomenal, just to come to an agreement and have all of those entities at least step back and watch us be able to do our work. So in that sense, I agree with Ms. Mizikowski that you've done a wonderful, wonderful job. But I liken the situation that we have here to perhaps an organization or a family that on the outside is doing a wonderful job, but when they come home, they're not communicating very well. And the issue here is the Department of Water and Power needs to understand that you need to communicate with the city authorities, we're not a commission, we're not the air quality, we're the city council. You need to make sure that you communicate with us so that when we have questions, so that we have the opportunity to exercise our authority and to clarify those questions, and then maybe at the end you will get a pat on the back saying, wow, what a phenomenal job you're doing. Maybe not. Maybe we'll have some added concerns. Maybe we'll actually shed some light on it. But in this particular case, you're absolutely right, Ms. Mizikowski. The project in and of itself is in fact something that warrants going forward. The problem is the process in which we've communicated between the Department of Water and Power and the City Council has been mismanaged. And that's why within the next 30 days, and the clock's been running, that we are going to get that commitment from the Department of Water and Power. As you, I think it was you that pointed that out, we don't necessarily need new rules. Somebody pointed out we don't necessarily need new rules, but we certainly need to make sure that everybody working within those rules know what those rules are and they follow those rules. So the fact of the matter is we're looking forward to have seen a blueprint once and for all from the Department of Water and Power to see to it that you follow those rules and that you recognize that when there is question whether or not you should come to the council, you need to make sure that you re-ask that question to the city attorney's office and make sure that you come to us appropriately and in a timely manner. And that doesn't just go to the Department of Water and Power, and very ably so, Ms. Mizikowski has pointed that out, that exact same problem with our Department of Airports. We need to make sure that our Department of Harbor Department actually has that in hand as well. So this committee that we both sit on is going to be asking for that information, not only from the Department of Water and Power, but from the other two proprietary authorities as well. So thank you very much for answering our questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. We also have Ms. Gruhl and then Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcetti and Mr. Cardenas and Ms. Mizikowski. You're right, we have talked about, Tony, the importance of that the rules do exist, and sometimes people need to be reminded about what those rules are. And we're looking through our Audits and Government Efficiency Committee and the motion that Ms. Mizikowski and I put forward, and working with the Mayor's Commission that's looking at contracting, and also with the small business contracting, that we need to look back and say, are we doing this right and are we following all the rules? And it is unfortunate, as Ms. Mizikowski mentioned, that this particular project that is so successful in Owens Valley got caught up in this part, but I don't want to repeat everything that's been said, just to say that you've heard the message today, that it is unacceptable to say we didn't know, because everyone does know, should know, and that will be something that we will be holding people accountable in the future. And so I just want to say that we'll obviously be supporting this amendment today, and look forward to the information you'll be providing to Mr. Cardenas's committee, and that we can use this I guess, opportunity to look back and make changes to our contracting system. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just quickly, Tony, you gave me an idea there. I think it would be important that we invite all general managers at some time, and I know Mr. Padilla is not here right now, but in the future, maybe after the budget process, just to focus and to remind people of the importance of all the guidelines, all the rules, because everybody's just trying to do their job. And I know we mentioned Cultural Affairs Department on this Los Angeles Center Theater Group, and they executed an agreement because they were just trying to do their job and they thought that was the right thing. But there is a process, that we have to follow it. And it would be good to have everybody here at one time in the future just to review all that so that everybody hears it loud and clear. Because the one thing that has built this city is the people who've worked in this city. And the people who've worked in these departments have worked very hard, and sometimes they've worked faster than what the process is someplace, faster than what there is because their mission was so committed to their mission. So I wanted to just make that suggestion to this because I understand water and power a lot, as all of us do, and all of us understand our departments a lot, as all of us do, but we have to maybe get that out. But this is so good, and I'm so glad to hear, as you said, Madam President, the importance of what is happening in an area of the state that is the area in the country that is the worst air pollution, because of an unfortunate situation is because we were doing the right thing. We were bringing water to the Pueblo, but did the wrong thing because we didn't leave anything there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. The matter is now before us, the committee report. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. We will send that forthwith. Thank you. Next item.
Item number 47 was called special by Councilmember Villaraigosa.
Mr. Villaraigosa, item 47.
Members, we've discussed this issue, the issue of supporting the March for Women's Lives. I would urge your aye vote.
Matters before us, we discussed it earlier. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. We will send that forthwith as well. What remains on the desk, Madam Clerk?
Do you wish to clear the desk before going into closed session?
Yes, please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
They are posted and referred.
There's an excuse on the desk. Councilmember Ludlow requests to be excused Friday, April 23rd to leave at 11:30 for city business. That meets council policy.
Mr. Ludlow is excused on that date. Let me recognize Ms. Perry. Could you turn Ms. Perry's mic on, please?
Would like to make a request to move 29 forthwith on behalf of Mr. Parks.
We'll move 29 forthwith. The other items on the desk?
Just the closed session matter.
All right. Would everyone not involved in the closed session please leave the council chambers so we can deal with the last remaining item in executive session? All right. Well, we've given you the intention of doing it. We'll bring it up again if we need to act on public. In fact, why don't we put it on the agenda for Friday, just as a routine item, continuation calendar having been done. No need for further executive session discussion on it. All right. Pardon me? Yes, please open up. He walked out. Well.
What are you going to tell the public? They're coming back on Channel 35. I'm going to be here.
City, Grohan, Labange, Ludlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, and that's, council has lost.